and you're ready for the week. Today is Monday. Every Monday, have standpoint coming your way, where we analyze the politics of the week that has been and how also it will be this week moving forward. Now, one of the ticket issues that we'll be discussing is the crisis within IEBC right now that we are facing. We're hurtling towards a constitutional crisis. Remember, next month is when that particular review of the boundaries is bound to be happening. And as it is right now, we do not have a reconstituted IEBC, lack of commissioners and capacity within IEBC as it stands. And also, we know some of the positions have not been filled yet since the demise of some of the legislators. What does this really portend, especially for these constituencies? Since 2010, we've had 290 constituencies, and of 27 of them, they do not meet the constitutional threshold as far as population is concerned, and that has risen right now to 76 of them. And this is portending a big problem if this issue is not resolved urgently. We shall be looking at this with our panelists this morning. I'll be joined by Danson Mungatana, who's a senator of Tana River, also senator of Bomet. This is Hilary Segei. We'll be joined by Dr. James Nyikal, who is a member of parliament for Seme, and also we'll be joined by Dr. Makalimuli, who is member of parliament, Kitui Central. You get to drive a show with us as well. You know what to do. Hit us on X, which is at KTN News. Also at Dibalanair is one of my Twitter handles or X handles that you can use so that you get to drive a show with me. You can pepper your questions, also share your contributions as well. All right, let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper, and this is what you're waking up to the front page of the Standard. On graft, Ruto is more back than bite, is what is a splash on the front page of the Standard today. On graft, Ruto is more back than bite. Survey findings. President William Ruto's tough talk on corruption seems to be just that, talk. Going by the latest survey, the talk is empty as Kenya dropped in its ranking on corruption fighting, doing worse than the global average and showing little effort to tame the scourge in the continent. This story continues on page 4 of the Standard today. And you have the poor score here, the rank. The report paints a gloomy picture on the status of corruption in Kenya after declining from a score of 32 in 2022 to 31 out of 100, with the country being ranked 126 out of the 180 countries and territories. 31 score Kenya got on the Transparency International survey on how countries are fighting corruption. That is a score 34, Africa's average score in the war against scourge. The global average is 43. We're doing dismally. And how can we stanch this flow of corruption? That is the biggest headache and the question that is hanging on the rafters of many Kenyans. On the side, but national news has the story of the legacy of Moi 4 years later. Moi's influence still being felt. Family and friends converged at former President Daniel Arap Moi's home in Kabrak, Nakuru County, to mark the 4th anniversary of his passing. They paid homage to a statesman whose life, they said, inspired unity, spirituality, and love. That story continues on page 2 of the Standard this morning. Also inside today's Standard, you have the Health and Science Pulled magazine. Hernia on baby, don't worry. That is a cause not to worry. You can find all the details on page 2 if your baby is suffering from hernia. There are different types of hernia, so you can actually get all the advice as far as hernia is concerned, and that is tucked away on page 2 of the Standard today. Fallen Namibia leader was a true friend of Kenya. President Hage Geingob supported the country in good and bad times, including when President William Ruto and his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta were indicted by the ICC, and the story continues on page 3 of the Standard this morning. Let me go back there and we see what we have on the teaser there. Raila, on IEBC, we are ready for the streets. On IEBC, we are ready for the streets, and that story continues on page 6. Remember, this is the latest development as far as IEBC is concerned, that those recommendations that were being made by the National Dialogue Committee cannot be steamrolled because The National Dialogue Committee, as it stands, was not anchored on law or on any legal framework, so to speak. CAP VAD eliminates malaria. That story continues on page 21. Tensions as CBK meets on interest. That is, a monetary policy committee will be meeting on this as well. So what does it mean? Does it move? Or what does it portend, I should say? On page 19 of a standard is what you have as the full-blown story and the gritty details of this. Watchland on fire as United beat West Ham. You can follow that story. Holland or Hoodland, I don't know how they pronounce it there. I hope I got it correct. That is how the standard looks today. And also, Teacher Service Commission seeks more power to rule over teachers. Amending the Teacher Service Commission Act will give TSC more regulatory powers over teachers and control over the continuous professional development. This story is on page 7 of the Standard this morning. All right, let me see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Bits of cartoons I'll show you much later. Crisis over MPs sit. This is what we were talking about with the Boundaries Commission. 290 constituencies were gazetted on March 7th, 2012. The country is hurtling towards a constitutional crisis with a 12-year deadline imposed by the Constitution for review of constituency borders lapsing next month. A report before Parliament compiled by representatives of President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga during bipartisan talks to end anti-government protest holds the key to averting the emergency that threatens legitimacy of at least 27 constituencies. This story is well laid out for you on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. TSC shocker for teachers. If a new bill enacted over 300,000 shillings by tutors registered by the Teachers Service Commission will be required to obtain practicing certificates and enroll in mandatory continuous professional development programs, all risk being barred from teaching. The story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Embakasi fire. Victims push for compensation. Victims of a gas explosion that killed 3 people and left over 300 others with serious burn wounds wants the state compensation for the negligence by public officials that saw an illegal filling station operating in a residential area. And that story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Today, looking at the teaser, why elections servers won't be hosted abroad. There's a new regulations that is published by the government that will compel the Electoral Commission to ensure poll servers are hosted locally unless permitted by law to be located outside the country. You have today's Daily Nation that has the junior sport and also higher education DN2 pull-out magazines, My Perfect University, volleyballer aims for Sky, and the high price of passive smoking as well is another story that you can follow on page 3 of the Daily Nation. Plight of lung cancer patients who are not smokers but have to fight the deadly disease with constant rebuttal that they never dabbled in the harmful habit. That story continues on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. TSC shocker for teachers. I've mentioned that. You can actually grab a copy of the Daily Nation to get the full scoop of the story. Allow me to just scroll over to the Star. City tycoon, my betrayal, pain, family feuds, and messy divorce. Says ending court cases part of wider plot to crush him. And this is billionaire Suresh Nanalal Kantaria. You have his story on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Bad blood billionaire's relative says cousins using ex-wife to bring down his empire. And Raila rejects IEBC panel's bid to recruit poll chiefs. ODM leader Raila Odinga with party delegates at Camp Toyoyo in Makadara, Nairobi yesterday, and we'll give you those stories momentarily. And stepped down from car grant case. SRC tells judges the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is now seeking the disqualification of judges appointed to hear cases or a case seeking the introduction of 10 million shillings car grant for the judicial officers. The SRC on Friday told a 3-judge bench to recuse itself over a clear case of conflict of interest. Now, this case has been ongoing since last year, and you can follow the gritty details of this on page 2. Budget experts poke holes in housing levy law. A team of economists who advise Parliament on matters public finance have pointed out loopholes in the law President William Ruto's administration is proposing to anchor the controversial housing levy. That story continues on page 8 of The Star. An actor Charles Oda passes away 6 months after engagement is a big blow for the acting industry. Actor Charles Oda passes away 6 months after engagement. You have the story on page 3 of The Star this morning. May the good Lord rest his soul in eternal peace. That is a story that you can follow all the details on page 3 of The Star this morning. All right, let's see what we have on the front page of a People Daily. How farms milk security guards. While companies negotiate sumptuous contracts for services, they pay employees beggar salaries and evade taxes through under-declaration of income and overstating deductions. That is the reality on the ground. You can follow the story on page 4. Entities denied KRA 14.6 billion shillings for past 6 years. And it's all about servitude, but being given menial janitorial pay for their services. That needs to be looked into. And you know, also we have the private security guards bill as well, that they're seeking the minimum wage bill for the guards to be 30,000 shillings, but that has been quashed by the courts. We are yet to see what will be the latest development on this as well. Kindiki pushed for IEBC to host servers in Kenya. If new regulations are approved by Parliament, poll team will be required to store critical data within the country. You can follow the story on page 7 of the People Daily this morning. All right, let's see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. Ruto kupaa tena. All right. He's budding wings again to fly. Itakuwa ziara ya 50 ya kigeni katika miezi 15 ya serikali yake inayolenga kukata matumizi. Hii ni ziara ya pili ng'ambo katika muda wa usiozidi siku 10. Rais asema anaenda Japan watafutia Wakenya zaidi ya laki ama shilingi 160 bilioni za ustawi. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Siri nzito iko karibu kuiva. Mudavadi asisitiza kuna habari njema kati ya Bondo kwa Raila na serikali. That story is on page 3. Nyumba nafuu, Raila hongerwa. You can follow the story also on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Bafana versus Nigeria. For Bora AFCON, you can read all about it inside Taifa Leo this morning. As we buckle down to business, this is what you're waking up to. Women-led farm fights for Nairobi Security Exchange, 800 billion shillings bond trades. 3 women behind new company licensed by CMA. Treasury distances itself from farm after details emerge. A prominent female lawyer is the brains behind a new bond trading firm that has won a lucrative license to take on Nairobi Security Exchange for a share of the revenue from 800 billion shillings bond business traded annually. Catherine Musakali is a founder and managing partner of a law firm, Dorian Associates, that owns 500 ordinary shares of the African Bond Exchange, that is IEBC Public Limited, making her a beneficiary or a beneficial owner of a new firm licensed last week by this Capital Markets Authority to start trading in bonds on over-the-counter exchange. Ms. Musakali, who sits in the boards of many listed firms as the company secretary, has close business relations with the 2 direct shareholders of IEBC, Agnes Nanjala Wanga and Dorian Associates. The story continues on page 2. You can just look at the Business Daily for that. And here's the IEBC structure. IEBC is an anchor shareholder or shareholders: KBA, FCD, Africa, CO Terry, Adembensa. We have Dorian Associates LLP, Agnes Nanjala, Awanga. We have Catherine Musakali, IEBC Company Secretary, Kirote Kananu, Moria, and Women on the Board Network CEO, that is also Agnes Nanjala Wanga. We have Women on Board Network Chairwoman, Women on Board Network Director, African Bond Exchange Network. All that, you can read all the gritty details inside the Business Daily. Congratulations to Catherine Musakali. Also, roads spending drops to record low in Ruto's policies shift. Public investment in roads, power generation plans and transmission lines has been the hardest hit by the William Ruto's administration sharp development budget cuts. Official data are showing this. Expenditure on road and energy projects from the government's main account hit the lowest levels in the first half of the current financial year since the Treasury started publishing the exchequer data decades ago. All that also is inside the Business Daily today. State nets 26.8 billion shillings from housing levy. Employers and employees paid 26.8 billion shillings under the mandatory housing development levy scheme in the 6 months ended December amid legal hitches that threatened to stop the controversial tax. Naivas siblings in fresh battle for father's estate is another story you can follow. And bank dollar rates is on shilling rally. Is on page 14 of the Business Daily this morning. And markets data, this is how it looks today, or since the closing of the money markets. Nairobi Security Exchange 20 index is up by 0.67. And we have also Nairobi Security Exchange All Share also up by 0.50%. We have the Egypt, of course, that is the trading market there, up by 0.54. And Johannesburg has gone down as well in Joburg, shedding 0.12%. Nigeria, looking at the exchange rate as well, not really the exchange rate, but their index as well is up 1.63, and Dar es Salaam also up by 0.22. That is the exchange rate. Yeah, or the exchange rate here to the dollar. On Friday it was 160. At least it went down by a few cents there. On Thursday it is 160.67. On Friday it was 160.57, up by 0.06. All right, I'll leave it for the money crunchers to decipher that expertly. Let's cross over to Uganda. Scramble for free kidney transplant is a splash on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Who will get lucky? 5 patients of the already registered 30 on dialysis will be given the costly treatment for free at Mulago National Referral Hospital as the government goes back to the drawing board on cost of the procedure. You have the story on page 3 of the Daily Monitor. And back to school. Time to get back to books as new term begins, and you can see them and a man helping children return to school in downtown Kampala yesterday. Schools across the country have reopened for first term. And also panic grips finance UIA after IGG raid, poverty blamed for rising cancer deaths, and tributes poor, I should say. They pour in for debt Namibia leader. Perspective, why hyping exams results is debasing education. Museveni to teachers, Uganda too broke to increase salaries. This is what the president is saying. And tribute, General Yusuf Gowon, Idi Amin's general, laid to rest. That is on page 2 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. In Tanzania, Kwala dry port to ease Dar cargo congestion. That is a splash. And Kilaini, no one wanted to listen to me on Tegeta escrow scandal. So now you can read all about his story there and the warnings on page 4 of the Citizen. Kinana defends government actions over reconciliation despite criticism from Chadema. EAC to roll out local antibiotic production combat inputs. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Citizen as well. In Rwanda this morning, a look at healthcare hurdles women with disabilities face. A look at healthcare hurdles women with disability face. All infrastructure create physical barriers limiting their access and mobility. This is on page 3. And Pastor Ezra Mpisi laid to rest. That is a story you want to follow inside the Daily Monitor. If you're waking up in Rwanda. The East African this week is holding this splash. Museveni bets on Samia to save oil plan. After the Kenyan talks got stuck, the Uganda leader has sent technocrats to Dar to thrash out a new deal. And this is on page 4 and 5. This goes to show, I should say, how that chasm is widening between Kenya and Uganda, and how we are losing one of our biggest trading partner when it comes to the oil deal. Italy, Africa ties, small cash with big strings. The $6 billion offered to the continent is meant to fund programs that will be more beneficial to Rome. That story continues on page 10 of the East Africa this week. Honeymoon is over. Ruto faces hostile stronghold. President is finding it hard to inspire fervor among hustler nation on high living cost. That story continues on page 12 of the East African. And tragedy in the city. Forensic experts from Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations arrive at the scene of an explosion at a makeshift gas cylinder refilling depot in Muradi Estate in Bakassi district in Nairobi on Friday. 3 people died and several hundreds others were hurt in the tragedy. That story is inside the East African this week. China Delhi Chi visits before Spring Festival touches hearts is a story to want to follow. President carries forward practice of learning about and improving people's well-being. All that is inside the China Daily. And China's trade in services making inroads to the world. That is also inside the China Daily this morning. I want to show you the latest copy of The Economist. How to End the Middle East's Agony is a story. The end of the social network and Bidenomics in a second term. Why charter schools work inside the Zelensky versus Zelensky feud. And this is how The Economist is looking, the latest edition. We have also the Newsweek Taxit. Can the Lone Star State got it alone? That is a probing question on the front page of Newsweek. And the Time magazine as well. Isurai plus 17 more leaders working to close the racial wealth gap. All that tucked away inside the Time magazine. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. If you are also want to know what is happening globally. And this is the Standard where we began. All right, make sure you grab a copy for yourself. Just want to introduce our panelists who are with us. Apandali, I'm holding court this morning with Dr. Makalimulu, who is a Member of Parliament for Kitui Central. Also, we have Dr. James Nyikal, who is a Member of Parliament for Seme. Also, we have Danson Mungatana, who is a Senator for Tana River. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate you coming through this morning. And of course, it's a new week. Fresh eyes, fresh pair of eyes, fresh pair of ears to keep our eyes peeled and keep out our ears to listen to what will be happening this week. One of the ticket issues that we'll be discussing is about IEBC and the crisis that now we're facing. We have almost, right now, 67 constituencies that are in the radar of IEBC, but we have an incapacitated IEBC, not fully constituted, and we are on the sharpest edge of the horn of a dilemma regarding also what the National Dialogue Committee had recommended, and that's the course the court really thrashed that particular matter, saying that and the National Dialogue Committee was not predicated on any legal framework constitutionally. So where are we at? Next month is when this should be happening. But first of all, let's hear what is happening within your constituencies that you're coming from. We can begin with you, Danson Mungatana. The Pokomo Elder.
Tana River is doing fine, but maybe before I say anything about Tana River, I just want to say pole to the 3 people who passed on in Mbakasi and more than 200 people who suffered injuries. We also received bad news about the passing away of the Namibian president. Having said that, Tana River is fine. This weekend we had a very interesting visitation of our cultural practices because we installed a new Igwe, what people will call an Igwe. Yeah, so it was very interesting to see what our forefathers used to do and a good reminder of what our cultures were. You know, in Tana River we have various communities. The Pokomo, the Orma, the Warte, the Wata, the Munyoyaya, the Wajuana, and all the other settled communities. But I come from the Pokomo, and we have very interesting cultural practice. Like, we would share food, but I cannot finish all the food. When I'm eating and there's a younger one, I have to leave food. Yes, so even if the food is a little, I have to leave food and depart, you know? Things like if you have a land case with an orphan or a widow, we always protect them. Our elders will always protect the orphaned people. Things like if you see your mother-in-law coming this way, you go the other way. You are not supposed to sit face to face, even come near her. And it is just that nowadays in town things are like the way they are, but you are never supposed to spend the night in the same house with your mother-in-law, you know, culturally. So we had a lot of reminders about some of these things. You know, in our culture, you can't marry from, if I marry from this family, my brother cannot come even close to the cousins there. He has to go very far. So we had a good reminder. And the Yu clan, which is part of the Bu clan, were able to install their leader, the new leader, in a very colorful ceremony. And this is Dr. Engineer Mwaka, who became the new boss of the new clan, of the Yu clan. So it was very nice, and I was happy to see that educated people now are taking part in, you know, serious engagement with the community. And he is an outstanding example of what we should be doing when we start getting off and start getting off our normal professional practice, and we go down to the villages to actually add real serious values. So it was very nice. And you know, when we see, you know, some of us, by the way, are very shocked when we see, like you have just talked about the IEBC. When we see Raila call names, the judge who has made that ruling, you know, and make a very bad comment against her, it is very bad, you know, in our custom. And I know in very many African custom, when he calls names to Wetangula, just because he said he's going to appeal the ruling, it is very bad.
Why can't we resolve? Let's just resolve that.
No, I'm not discussing the issue, but I'm saying you can argue things, you can say things without having to call people shenzi.
All right.
It is just bad, and we should sanitize our politics because we are Africans.
Yeah,
we should really, you know, behave in our, you know, in our politics. And this started, you know, at the end of the last year's election. You have people, senior elders, standing up and calling people shenzi. I think that sanitization must take place. You can argue, we can disagree, but we don't have to call each other names.
Right.
Yeah.
Honorable Wakali, good to see you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Dibal.
Yes.
Good morning, viewers.
How's Kitui Central?
Kitui Central is good. But before I get to Kitui Central, let me join my colleague, Senator Mugatana, in saying that we really sympathize with the people of Mbakasi East, those who lost their loved ones, and now they're actually more than 3. Senator Mugatana, they are no longer 3.
Yes.
The numbers increased.
Okay.
I think now they are 6. So many of them are in hospitals, and we saw the challenge of even medication because of their economic status. So we want really to wish them the best. Those who have lost ones, we say pole. Those who are in hospitals, We wish them quick recovery. At the same time, also, the people of Namibia have lost their president. And we join the rest of Kenyans, including our president and the other leaders, who have said pole to Namibians. Namibia is a very friendly country to Kenya.
Yes.
And when they are mourning, we are also mourning. But Dibal, getting now back to the local one, the Kitui one. The week was good, but it ended also on us. No, actually, yesterday I lost my uncle. They needed a follower to my dad.
Sorry.
Although relatively hinged, but you know, he still remains my uncle. I think he's around now 90, because my dad we celebrated 100 last December. And his immediate follower must be now around 90, 97, 98. But that has happened. So I'm also in a mourning mood. At the same time, we also lost a very close friend called Sikwa Mulwa, who was contesting against me in 2017. He also gave up the battle yesterday at around 11. So, and others. We've lost others, but you saw these two. I'm singling these two out because they were very close to me. But we have also lost others. But generally, Kitui Central is good. People are now preparing to harvest. Actually, I went to Kitui in the course of the week. I had to dash there on Saturday because I had a family meeting, and I realized people are now getting their maize out of the farms. You'll be surprised if about to see the kind of maize we are getting this time. It's big size. So we are going to experience the Baba harvest, just because of the grace of God that He gave us enough rains. And I've said that even though Kenya Kwanza government is celebrating this Baba harvest, we will not keep on relying on the grace of God to continue feeding our people. We need to think outside the box. But all said and I think it's good. Then yesterday, I'm sure you updated that Wiper Party, under the leadership of my good friend and party leader, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, we launched officially our campaigns for President 2027. We spent the day in Kajiado, the whole day.
This is a big statement.
Yeah. So we are out there now. Mungataka should get worried.
100,000.
These campaigns have begun in earnest.
That money will be disappearing.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway.
Then I can see also there is a Siri Nzito that iko karibu kuiva. Mudavadi asisitiza kuna habari njema kati ya Bondo kwa Raila na serikali. Yeah. So maybe Dr. James Yekala has an inkling of what is happening. So with that particular launch, the big launch yesterday, what does also Azimio look like, the future of Azimio? Dr. James Yekala, good morning, good to see you.
Morning. Let me also first take this opportunity to pass my condolences to the people we lost in the gas fire tragedy, the 6 people and those who are hurt. It's a sad thing that it should happen. It's sad that this guy was rejected, the application rejected 3 times. He continued to operate. We really need to beef up our regulatory systems. But for those who are affected, Paul, it's sad that the health services, people have to make contributions and so on. But we really wish them well, and we hope that the matter will be sorted out. Also, the people of Namibia, we have a very close relations with Namibia. You know, when they were fighting for independence, we were together. I remember when I was still working in Kenyatta, we used to have many patients, particularly in our heart unit, that were coming from Namibia. I remember one of their presidents actually came to visit Kenyatta, even before their independence. And one of the best hospitals in Southern Africa now, which is in Namibia Medical School, a university teaching hospital, which we have refused to establish in this country, a teaching hospital. It was actually started by a Kenyan, actually my classmate, and he's still there. Yeah, he's still there. The same person who actually started MOI together with the Professor Mangaj, but now he went and started that one. So we are very close, and Paul for them also. Same, we are fine. I think generally there was a good harvest this year, but our concern now is that the rain pattern is not the usual. What we are seeing now is the rain, now it will be a little drier, just starting, but now it seems to be getting to dry ending. So people don't know whether to now plant or not. So the rain pattern is not very good. That's a bit of a worry. The fertilizer program has started, but in Seme we have a problem because all of it is coming from Kisumu, which is about 40 kilometers away, and people are getting messages on their phones that you go and pick your fertilizer. All in all, I think we don't have a lot of problems. We have a little problem in the fishing, the lake. The fish is dwindling, and we haven't changed our fishing habits, so people are kind of fighting over fish in the lake. But in all, I think we Seme is fine for now.
All right. Let's cross over to Bomet and hear from Hilary Sigay. Good morning.
Good morning, Debal.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for hosting me, and I'm happy to see my colleagues here. And I also would like to mourn with the people of Namibia. That is a region, a country, a friendly nation for the people of Kenya and the region at large. And as they mourn the loss of their president, one of the things that I learned about this is that the president was within the country. And I applaud them because that is one of those things that we have for a very long time told ourselves we need to build our own. Building our own means making sure that within our localities here, if anything were to be done within Kenya, it is part and parcel of growing our health sector. And as we mourn, we also ask that they transition the way they have actually so far done to swear in an acting president in peace. Secondly, with the incident that happened in Embakasi, it is one of those which I believe is an eye-opener to a number of our regulatory agencies and also the current administration. Losing such number of people over such an incident where you had no license to operate is not one to take for granted. It is, I believe, an opportunity for us to make sure that we right wrongs and also make people take responsibility. We equally mourn with the families of those whom we lost, and also ask the families of those who are in various hospitals to also keep watch on them. We pray for their quick recovery. Other than that, Bomet is okay, I would say. It's begun the year very well, and there is so much. I'm happy when I hear Dr. Nikal and my brother Makani here say this year we are going to have, or we have actually experienced bamboo harvest. Same case applies to us back in Bomet. And one of the reasons why we are there is we will not definitely, of course, forget the fact that God has been gracious enough to facilitate good rainy season for the almost, I would call 2 seasons. And more importantly, again now, what the Kenya government has done is to facilitate available subsidized fertilizers to make sure that our farmers at least get something. When we hear Dr. Nikal, 40-kilometer away, fertilizer being supplied from Kisumu to Seme, it's one of the concerns that even us back from where we come from, we have indicated to the government that let's change this policy. And remember what the government has done, which is now in this phase of supplies of the subsidized fertilizer, is to partner with local agrophets and suppliers, so that as long as you're registered, you do not have to travel for as far as 40 kilometers or even beyond to get this fertilizer, because that policy has helped the government to register and to make sure that there is proper partnership between the local suppliers, so that a farmer would just walk across. Remember, there were a bit of incidences where I think 2 or 3 of farmers were got with hoarding supplies, and it's because of the distance. One would go buy as much as 200 plus bags to hoard them and sell. But with the current policy that has been put in place by the Agriculture Ministry, I know we will not experience a similar challenge that our farmers would travel far for them to access this fertilizer. It is one of those things that we are looking forward to also improving the status of growth of our economy and also the support by the government to the farmers. We look forward definitely, Dibal, to a better 2024, despite the dynamics and the challenges. When you look at the headline, is it more back than bite? Well, it is first of all important to acknowledge the fact that the moment you have a conversation about something, whether it's graft, whether it's political democracy, whether it's about building the nation, whether it's about delivering on the promises, that conversation alone helps us to make sure that indeed we deliver to the people of Kenya on the promises that were made, and it gives also Kenyans an opportunity to provide checks and balances. That is the only way where the government of the day will be put to task to make sure that it performs, to make sure that it doesn't just talk, because you cannot, you know, politics is unpredictable. Politicians similarly are unpredictable. But the moment you run a conversation about the promises you made, you are kept on toes and you are expected to deliver on those promises.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's buckle down to some of the ticket issues, the big ticket issues that we want to discuss this morning, especially regarding the Azimio and IEBC. Azimio leader Raila Odinga has insisted that there will be no hiring of new IEBC commissioners until Parliament ratifies the recommendations of a National Dialogue Committee report that is expected to be tabled when Parliament resumes its sittings next week. Raila, who was speaking when he led the ODM party membership recruitment drive in Kamukunji, Nairobi, faulted the High Court ruling that directed that the current IEBC selection panel to move with speed and recruit a new commission. And as our political affairs reporter, Jeff Kirui, tells us, Odinga appears to be gearing for another face-off with President William Ruto as he lays ground for his sixth term at the presidency.
The ruling by the High Court on Thursday directing the IEBC selection panel to immediately begin the process of recruiting new IEBC commission has rubbed the Azimio leadership the wrong way, as ODM brigade led by Raila Odinga dismissed the directive.
Nasema hiyo ni upuzi. Ni upuzi. Ile kamati yaweze kufanya kazi, manake ilikuwa tayari imevunjwa na bunge. Sasa hii ripoti ya kina Wandai na Kalonzo ukienda mbele ya bunge ipitishwe, ndio tutaanza mambo ya IEBC.
Azimio la Umoja has maintained that they must be involved in picking the selection panel to take part in filling the vacant positions of IEBC commissioners.
Tuliwaambia tulienda kwa barabara kwa sababu mambo mnene sio. Tuliwaambia barabara bado iko. Si barabara bado iko. Na mko tayari? Mko tayari? Mko tayari? Hiyo nimewambia, hiyo silaha tuko nayo.
Last week, Judge Mugure Thande said the political truce between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga that birthed the National Dialogue Committee does not override the Constitution. A directive that has Raila now directing his guns at the judiciary as he accused the Chief Justice of being whipped into submission by the executive after CJ Martha Koome yielded to a meeting with the Kenya Kwanza leadership at State House.
Nilimshauri huyo mama usiende Ikulu, utashika mateke huko. Akaenda. Kutoka huko yeye anasema ati amepewa pesa ya kuajiri majudges. Pesa ya mambo ya bajeti yafanywe katika Ikulu.
And given the critical role of IEBC in the electoral process, today's meeting at the Kamukunji grounds perhaps one of the signs that Raila Odinga is gearing for another stab at presidency after spearheading countrywide mass membership recruitment exercise and calling on Azimio affiliate parties to follow suit.
Raila Amolo Odinga ni lazima awe katika ballot mwaka 2027. Wangapi wako na mimi?
Mkijasiri kama ODM, hii mambo tumetenga, ati tumekubaliana, itakuwa inakwisha 2027.
Sisi kama wana ODM leo tumeanza safari hapa Kanairo. Safari ya kujipanga. Ni safari ya kujipanga na kupeleka Zakayo nyumbani.
The ODM brigade maintaining the onslaught on President William Ruto, whom they accuse of reneging on his campaign pledge.
Mtu akisimama akuambie baada ya miezi 3 tutakuwa tunanunua gas na shilingi 300. Alafu asifanye, huyo mtu unamuita nini? Akisema atatengeneza serikali ya mama mboga na watu wa bodaboda na vijana wa chini, alafu aende kuchagua wadosi ndani ya serikali yake, tunaita huyo mtu nani? Si ni muongo?
Na lazima tujipange, tukomboe nchi yetu kutoka kwa minyororo ya wale wanatusumbua saa hii.
Jeff Kirui, KTN News.
And President William Ruto has termed Azimio leader Raila Odinga's admission that the affordable housing program is a noble cause as evidence their initial reservations were not in good faith. Speaking in Kakamega during an interdenominational prayer service, Ruto said ignoring the opposition to the program is what has steered it to the current status. The head of state further defending his foreign trips as an avenue to create employment opportunities for Kenyan youths. The Kenya Kwanza leaders who accompanied the president calling for patience from Kenyans and exuding optimism that the economy will be or it will stabilize. Alan Ochanda has more.
The crescendo of President William Ruto's 4-day development tour of Western Kenya was an interdenominational prayer service in Kakamega, where he took the opportunity to rally the region behind his programs. The president terming Azimio leader Raila Odinga's acceptance that the affordable housing program is a noble cause as a sign the initiative is on the right track, but wondered why the opposition initially opposed the program, terming them as insincere.
Former Prime Minister amesema yeye anaamini affordable housing. Sasa story si imeishi hapo. Sasa bado tunabishana nini tena? Amesema hiyo affordable housing ni kitu ya maana sana. And that is what I have been saying. Sasa hii maandamano yote ilikuwa ya nini? Kama affordable housing is a very important thing.
Hata ukiona wale walikuwa wanapinga mipango yako, sasa wanasema the concept is right, but the methodology is wrong. Ignore the methodology, focus on the concept. Since they tell you the concept is right.
The opposition has also been critical of the president's many foreign trips and his resolve to secure youth jobs abroad, terming that as brain drain. This, the head of state says, has helped the country secure donor funding and defended his move to secure young Kenyans jobs in foreign countries. The ailing economy, taxation, and public debt, according to leaders who accompanied the president, need painful decisions as they are intertwined, and told of Azimio over their claims that President Ruto could be preparing former IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati to take over from Martha Koome as the next Chief Justice.
Kama ni Chebukati ama nani, if he puts his bid for the position of a judge, that is the responsibility of the Judicial Service Commission, not the responsibility of politicians to try and direct the Judicial Service Commission.
Chebukati is a Kenyan, and akiwa qualified, he has the right to be the Chief Justice of this country. Therefore, Azimio hawana lao la kusema ya kwamba lazima asikuwe Chebukati ama akuwe nani. Hiyo ni kazi ya timu ya Judicial Service Commission, and they are free.
His tour of Western Kenya saw farmers from Zoia Sugar Company receive their pay, with those from Miwani, Soni, Muhoroni, and Chamele lined up for the same. Mumia's Sugar Company, although private, farmers within its catchment, according to the head of state, will also be catered for, even as more weight is directed at Ken development.
Ya Mumias tulikuwa tumefanyia mambo pale mbele. Kuna madeni kidogo ya karibu bilioni sijui 4 imebaki. Na ndio mnaona sijasign mambo yao. Bado kuna wakora kidogo unajaribu kusort out.
Lazima mwekezaji atilie mkazo mambo ya kulipa wafanyakazi. Na mwisho pia, kwa sababu hiyo nucleus yeye kukuja nayo hapo, it is the highest time they also give our farmers bonus so that they can realize the fact that we have a factory here na shamba wako kuja nayo walete bonus ili tuweze kuinua maisha ya vijana wetu na maisha ya Wanakakamega.
The government has also announced plans to employ 20,000 teachers to bridge the gap of teachers shortage and streamline the junior secondary education. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Well, interesting issue on IEBC that is now developing to be a very big fodder for politics, as it were. You can see the banning of words there between the different legislators as far as IEBC is concerned. There is a crisis. We want to discuss this with our panelists before we take a short break, just to hear the opening remarks on it as well. What does it portend? Next month should be the month when this comes to a constitutional crisis, if nothing really happens since March 2010. 67 constituencies now do not meet the threshold as far as the constitution is concerned, given the population that is required within the boundaries. We're talking about the reviews of the boundaries. And I just want to begin with you, Honorable Danson Mungatana, on this, because it seems even looking at the political tone and tenor, the focus is not really on IEBC and the boundaries review and the reconstitution of it. It seems also Raila Odinga right now is saying away with the courts and what the determination of the courts. The other week, it was there we should be respecting the courts. Now here is the decision that is adversely affecting Azimio and the National Dialogue Committee.
Yeah, Dibal, first of all, the court was very right, because given the material, the court makes decision on the material, the arguments, and the decisions that are presented before it. And the decision was correct, because the people of the late MP, I think from Wajir, who passed away when he was knocked here, went to court and said, look, we want to have our by-election. So they are, in fact, making a fairly straightforward plea that we are disadvantaged. We need to have our election done, our by-election done, so that we can have our MP. In Tana River County, we have Chewani Ward. The member of the county assembly passed on, and it's a very big disadvantage to the people there, and they suffer because, there is like MCA's small kit for bursary. The MCA is made also to propose some development projects. They don't have a member of county assembly, so somebody has to act like he's the member of the county assembly. So the case in its own merits was good, and I think the judge made a good decision. And as usual, the politician he is, Raila, when it is not good for him, then courts are useless, courts are bad and what. But when it is for him, or it is against the government, then we must respect the courts, which is a sad situation. I think we should have a proper stand on this. However, having said that the judge was right, because the judge was right. In fact, there is no lawyer who will tell you the judge was wrong, any serious lawyer for that matter. But you see, there is a parallel process called the National Dialogue, which was ongoing, which was agreed by both sides. And this process has not been concluded. So the judge is right. An agreed process. And at the end of it, when you are going for a football match, you must have an arbiter or a referee whom you have all agreed. I have always held that position. In fact, at some point, I used to think that maybe what we should do is to bring the Chief Justice of Uganda or Nigeria to come and preside over the elections and go away, or the Chief Justice of South Africa. One of the, because we need somebody who is acceptable to all of us. However, our constitution does not allow for people to come in and preside for elections and go away. But these are ideas I think we should explore, because the arbiter must be acceptable to the people in the football field. It should not be a person who people feel they will not be fair. So from my own assessment, the judge is right, but there's also the national dialogue process that is going on, and we need to agree what we are going to do as a country. But for now, with the current constitution, what the judge has said is what actually is provided for in the constitution. The national dialogue process has not been finalized. So when you look at it, both of them are right in one way or the other, but we need to agree that what the judge has said is what is provided for in the constitution for now.
So then the national dialogue cannot be right in any way, because the premise of it did not start on the right footing. So anything that you do, no matter how good it is, if it's not predicated on law, it is like you having if you have a skewed they say a skewed mindset, you'll always have a skewed view of how you see things.
But that brings a very serious philosophical question. Is the law always right? Mm-hmm. You know, is the law, I mean, just being legal, is it always right? That is why in the constitution they provide, like, you can jail people, jail, but there's also the presidential pardon, where the president can actually pardon a person, because the justice system can be right in its own way, but it is a case of presidential mercy. It's a case that you look and you say, this Muzee, ambaye is also 80 or 90 years old, has been jailed, and it's true he did what he did, but is it right for him, morally, for him to stay in jail? You see, so sometimes the prerogative of mercy is then exercised. So the law may be right, but is the law always right? You see, so the judge is right, but he, in the context of what is happening in the society now, is he really right? For example, now, in that judgment, they pointed out an issue saying there are 67 constituencies which are at risk, including, I think, one from Tana River County, one from Lamu County. So in the coast, we have at least 2 or 3 which are supposed to disappear according to the current constitution. But is it right for a people who are used to having a member of parliament to lose that because the constitution says so? Is it right? So when you look at it, sometimes what is legal may not necessarily be what is right.
But we need to hark back and find out then what was the constitution meant to cure when you're giving this provision that after every 10 years, then we need to have a boundaries review. Because there could be, there's a rhyme and reason why the crafters of this constitution put this. You're raising a moral issue. It's a constitutional issue as well. But how then do they cognate and meet? And what was the reason behind coming up with this constitutional review after 12 good years?
That is where the politics comes in, because the constitution is a product of politics. The politics are the people. So that is where they come in together, so that we can make the constitution something that is usable for us. Remember what Jesus said, the law is not, man is not created for law, it is a law that is created for man, which means at some point we need to make it work for us, not the other way. It shouldn't be so rigid that it doesn't make sense. So according to me, there's a reason for us to look at the constitution, because for us, we will not accept a situation where you're taking away a constituency from Tana River, for example. It is not acceptable. It is just wrong. So we'll need to look again at what needs to happen.
All right, do you agree with Danson Mungatana that we need to relook also this particular provision of our constitution after 10 good years? We need to have the boundary reviews. And what was the rhyme and reason behind coming up with this legislation? We need to tease out this moving forward. We'll take a short break. It's taking up to 8 o'clock right now. And when we circle back, 7 o'clock I should say, when we circle back, of course, we shall continue with that particular discussion. What does it portend next month? Are we hurtling towards a constitutional crisis? No IEBC in sight that is fully constituted as far as commissioners